Thank you. Okay, good evening, you guys. It's South Carolina, at least the upstate. It's been a rainy day. It's all day. It's not. The temperature's been in the 50s though, so it hasn't been too bad. But nice, relaxing day. But on yesterday, we had a very good day. We started off with questions. I think Angela started off with a question about the resurrection and about resurrection. Then we took other questions and we ended up looking at uh, Mark the seventh chapter, and we were surprised to see or talked about anyway a little bit. Jesus using a reference to Ptah, to Kemet, and looking at that and trying to understand that, and uh, and that's sort of where the day ended. So any questions about anything really? I mean, if you want to anything that we spoke on yesterday, or any comments or questions that you may have today.
I would kind of like you to recap what we talked about in Mark, as it was kind of profound.
You're looking for who to recap?
The recapper.
Pastor, can you recap for us, please? You're the recapper.
Anyway, because talk about stealing your Jesus. Anyway, thanks.
What we talked about was was something that we had looked at for 100 years. Ever since we've been looking at scripture and never really paid any attention. And in Mark, when we saw in Mark where Jesus used the word Ptah, we saw that that is a reference to Ptah, but however, that's not the only place in the Bible that references Ptah. We just found that out yesterday and a few minutes ago. The other thing is when Jesus used the word Ptah, he had his fingers in a deaf man's ears, and Ptah means to open up. And Jesus said, when he put the fingers in the ears and said, Eta Ptah, he said, be opened. That was the translation of it. And Ptah is an opening to everything that is created. It creates the space for creating. And it also creates the space for us to have more understanding of who we are, as well as Ptah. And when Barbara says something in reference to the ears, that you put your fingers in your ears, you block out all of the distractions and the noise. And in response to that, a question from that, I think it was Mara who asked the question about the inner ear, bringing balance. And so when we put all of that together, what we came from that with an understanding is that Ptah is the opening that leaves space for creation, and aids us in blocking out the distractions so that we can become balanced in this earth. That's all I got for you. Questions or comments? Did they help, Audrey?
Yes.
Thanks. Ron?
Do you know if that's the actual translation?
It traces back, I think it traces back to the Old Testament, doesn't it, Ron?
Yes.
And it is Ptah.
No, I mean the translation of it.
Oh,
is that the actual translation?
Oh, the actual translation is more than that. Actually, it's talking about being open, but the plots give in-depth understanding of what it means to be open, what patah means to be open, open in what. And he talks about the what and the opening and the purpose for being open. Let me see if I have that. I think I just looked at that. No, I had it bookmarked yesterday. So
Well, you reference page what? 54?
54, where he references patah in Mark.
Yeah.
Because I think it would be a lot clearer if
Is that right? Did I say 54?
I think it's 34.
34.
Yeah. Here it is. It says that here we, in reference to Mark 7:32 through 37, here we find that all versions of the Gospels, including those from the Greek, state that Jesus uses a healing word of power in Aramaic, ephphatha, which is rendered be open. This word has resonances at least as far back as the old Egyptian god named Ptah, who was considered the opener or the open mouth that created the world. This aspect of the Egyptian mysteries emphasized a process of opening to the divine, creating space, and then shaping it into words and actions for creation and for healing.
That's where did you just read from?
Page 31. So does that help out?
Pastor, would you repeat
Yeah,
where you
a
just
lot.
read from?
It's from a book that I have.
Okay.
What's the book, Pastor?
Hidden Gospel. You have it.
From Klutz?
Yeah.
Okay.
Roy?
Yeah, I'm just listening.
Does
I
that
have a
help you with that
question.
part? Go ahead.
My question is, it says he spat and touched his tongue. What does that represent?
I didn't even look at that part after
Okay.
The eighth apata really grabbed my attention, and I did not even look at the other translations there.
Okay.
So, however, I will make an effort to see if it's mentioned. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't see it on page 33. I swear.
What are you looking for?
Where he talks about the tongue.
Okay.
Yeah,
You go ahead. I'll look for it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments as to
Good evening, Ron. Good evening, everyone. This is George in Philly.
hey
And when I was
George?
looking at Mark 7 chapter verse 33, and the Bible says, and he took him aside from the multitude by himself and put his finger into his ears.
Mhm.
And when I read the word ears, I thought about it, in terms of our third ear. We know we have 2 ears, you know what I mean, in terms of visibly what we see. But when we talk about the third ear, it's like, you have a seashell, and sometimes you can listen to put your ear to a shell and there's like a vibration or there's a sound, but it would be the same like if you put your fingers in your ears, there's, a vibration or there's a sense of experiencing our senses, whether it's what we see, taste, smell, touch, or hear. But it was just, something again where it's like a different sound when you know what I mean, when you just
Yeah.
do that little exercise in it. And I'm just trying to think of it in terms of what we're talking about when it comes to patah. That's, where you talk about energy, connecting to energy, at rest. And again, I know we'll get there, but it just made me think about, the fact of a third ear and what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And so not just the physical aspect of it, but in terms of the frequency or the vibration or whatever you hear when you kind of do that exercise, if that makes sense. I'm done.
It does. You know what else it put me in the mind of, George? Have you ever been driving or trying to concentrate on something, and you're driving your car and you cut your music off or cut it down, uh, or you maybe you're trying to find directions and you cut your music. It's so that you can internalize what you're doing, so that you can cut out all the exterior stuff, so you can concentrate on what is it I'm trying to accomplish here. Uh, it eliminates the noise, and that's kind of what I hear too. You're saying the vibration and the frequency that you're talking about is extremely real here. Closing up his ears. It was sort of like I was thinking about earlier today, our session yesterday, and what time, how I felt that I could feel that, and I got off the phone and I really felt that day. What it's hard to describe it, but as Audrey comes out and say, somebody recap, I can't tell you what we talked about. I can tell you what verses it was, but internally I felt it, so I know what you're talking about. Is what I'm saying.
And the fingers in the ear, Joyce referenced the third ear, the hearing, the internal hearing. That's in the Middle East to this day, they do the same thing, and putting the fingers in the ears forces you to rely on the internal hearing. And it says that the reason Jesus touched him is because he wanted him to vibrate at the same vibration that he was. He wanted him to vibrate with him, and his touch and breathing on him brought him to that place of resonance with Jesus, with the healer. So I really want to look at that word tongue to see if it indeed says, is translated the right way.
Yeah.
Because that would be, to me, imperative. Because the question becomes, if he mixed spit on the ground and put it in his and touched to his ears, the question is why, and how did that become a process of healing? So was he healing speech as well as my God, lost my thought. Was he healing?
Yeah, that was his ailment was speech and hearing.
So what he was, so when it says be thou open, then he is talking about not only the opening of the ears, he's talking about an opening from the outside to the inside. So you start hearing from the inside, and you start speaking from the inside. The internal voice. My deep feelings is that when Jesus touched his tongue, he was being expressive of of speaking from within as opposed to verbalizing a message. So if he's hearing from within, then it has to be speech from within too, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's what I'm seeing thus far in those verses anyway. Because it says that he spoke with difficulty. He touched the tongue. But with saliva is not there. That's italicized. So that was added. Do you see that?
Which part was added?
It's in the verse 33, Mark 7, verse 33. It says, and I'm reading from the New American Standard, and it says that, and he took him aside from the multitude by himself and put his fingers into his ears, and after spitting, he touched his tongue with the saliva. But that with the saliva is italicized. And in the scriptures, if something is italicized, it's been added.
Okay, that saliva part is not in the RSV.
Okay. What does it say? Read it, please.
And taking him aside from the multitude privately, he put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue.
So it does not actually reference him mixing spit on the ground. He spat, right?
Yeah.
428. So it's from a root that that talks about expansion. And I will rather look for that in the Aramaic than to look for it in the Greek.
Yeah, verse 35, I think we said that does plainly tell you that he healed his speech and his ears, opened his ears.
And he began speaking plainly.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself leaves a lot to be understood, I think.
Good evening, everyone. Can y'all hear me clearly?
Sure.
I apologize in advance if it's noisy. I'm still at office, but outside on the balcony. I noticed yesterday it said that he was taken away from the crowd as well, and I know there's a lot, that is changed in the translation, but presumably he was taken away from the crowd. It would also have been a lot quieter environment. And also, in terms of the sequence of the order of things that actually took place, to Pastor Richards and George's point, when he immediately began to actually hear, at least it wasn't said in the way that the scriptures have represented us, that Jesus was even still speaking at that particular point. So an internal hearing that from himself, or that which is universal, is what he was all of a sudden hearing. And then immediately after that, the word that I have for the tongue was that the tongue was bound, and immediately that bound was loosened. And how I saw it was that all of a sudden he was not only just able to, because of course we know it's an allegory, to speak in terms of speaking, just talking as we were thinking more so a physical manner, but he was also actually able to speak that from which was within. And so in a sense, he was an extension of Jesus, or pouring out from then that same source, as he became aware of that particular source that he just been, I don't want to say opened up to, but he'd all of a sudden become very aware of, I would say.
So at the same time that he was here, at the same time that he was made able to made aware that he's able to hear from the divine. He was also made aware at the same time about the speaking of the divine, meaning that your outer ears do not hear the divine speak. The speech of the divine comes through your inner ear, as George referenced as the third ear, the spiritual ear, and the spiritual speech that entered the spiritual ear. He was taken, as Sheldon said, to a place where it was quieter, so he would not have any external interference with hearing from the inside. That, I think, is no different than when we are in the process of meditating, or if we seek to receive guidance from the ancestors. What do? We get to a place that is quiet. So it is my contention that this man had no, of course it's a metaphor, but he had no sense of understanding about who he is. And when Jesus opened his ears and cleared his speech, then he was able to speak with the divine, because now he was aware of it, as well as aware of being able to hear. Does that make sense? Sheldon?
No, absolutely makes, to me, it makes perfect sense. That's,
Questions or comments?
This is Vermel. Given your explanation just now, what I seem to understand, I want to know if this is kind of in the right direction. So the gentleman who couldn't hear and couldn't speak, he desired to hear and understand. He had an internal desire.
I'm sorry. It doesn't reference his desire. It just references how that he was deaf, and knowing that it's an allegory. Every one of us was deaf to the voice of the divine, and we were not able to, we did not understand how to solicit understanding from the divine. We did not know how to receive from our Creator. So we wanted to hear. However, Jesus is using as an example a man who's deaf. These are allegories that tells us spiritual truth. Jesus is telling us how you can hear. shut out all of the noise and um, do not use your verbal tongue to speak. Speak from the inside. My desire. Would you mute your phone, please? Speak from the inside. My desire is to understand the true spiritual nature of what's in the scriptures. I want to understand what you taught. And now what is next? I continue to study and do all of those things, but the day comes when I am able to hear from the Creator, and I am able to speak what I hear from the Creator. But prior to my desire, I didn't even know it was available. Does that make sense for me?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else?
Several of the translations that I'm looking at talked about the speech impediment as stuttering. In other words, it's difficulty getting out what was is
Right.
you know what how someone who stutters does. They have in their mind what they want to say, but they have difficulty getting it from the inside out. So several interpretations say that it was the difficulty speaking related to stuttering, or the speech impediment related to stuttering.
And with that, I also speak to us. We did not know how to get out what we were looking for. And we were
Or what came out was gibberish.
right. Yes. And it was not clear at all. But I do believe, Bob, also that when we first started meeting as teachers trying to understand the scriptures, we were stuttering, not in a physical sense of stuttering, but stuttering in a spiritual sense, because how we had to go over things and talk it out, for hours before we could get an understanding. Would that count as spiritual stutter?
I would say, yeah, it. And the other thing is that a lot of us have in us the divinity. We know something's in there, but we don't quite know what it is. And so when you try to voice it, you don't know what you're saying or how to say it, because you don't really even understand. And so when this man could not hear his inner voice, from a spiritual perspective, not able to hear the inner voice, how can one translate that inner voice and say what it says when one does not understand? Is what you just said, in a sense, I think, too.
Yes, yes. Any questions or comments about that? Is it clear? I believe that. Go ahead.
No, I'm just answering the question.
Okay. I believe that it's imperative that we stay here until we understand this. And every time that we have come to a scripture that we have seen forever, and all of a sudden it speaks to us, it gets our attention, and we work with it until we understand it from the original language, as well as understanding the idiomatic language of what's being said. We do that. And every time we've done that, we have gained much more insight than we had previously. And I believe that, no, James. I know that what's happening now, by virtue of us looking at Jesus use this word, Ptah. Speak of the God, Ptah. Speak of the one who created all, will open up opportunity for creation. Speaking that ties us to the beginning. It ties us to Cushite slash Kemet, Kemetans. It ties us to that. It ties us to the energy of the spiritual kingdom. And that and being tied to the energy of the spiritual kingdom, we now begin to see the mysticism that has been called demonic. I've heard people say things like, no one has been healed by the laying of hands since Jesus was crucified. That's not true. However, now we are beginning to understand why it is not true. And we're beginning to understand and embrace the connection of beginning, the oneness rather, of beginning with us right now. The mysticism has been dismissed as a miracle. But I agree with the writer who says that the miracle is not understanding. The miracle is that it took us so long to understand, because it's always been before our eyes. So right now, I do. My expectation is the experiences of mysticism, being able to see things as they take place, being able to experience things from the other world, being guided from the other world, and understanding it from a more a more sensitive mindset than we've had in the past. This whole idea of being one with the ancestors, them being the bridge in this earth that guides us with guides us with divine energy. All of these things are available to us, but we're on the precipice. No, we're not on the precipice. We are in the midst of being guided by all of this. And guess what? Pretty much everyone who claims to be spiritual in terms of Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, all of them will call us crazy and say that we are demonic in what we're doing. Yet, when you look at the Twa Umbuti, when you look at the Umbuti people to this day, they believe in one creator, and they also believe that our ancestors are divine gods for us in this earth. Now, this has been going on since the beginning. So why is it in the last, 2,000 years, why is it now wrong when it's been going on from the beginning? When this is the method that has been employed to understand who we are. My belief is the Umbuti are simply saying that the energy within that you have from your family structure lineage, that energy is always connected to you. And if you listen, that energy can guide you. That's ancestral connection. That's ancestral guidance. And the belief in a creator, that's also ancestral guidance. So for over 4 million years, this has been a belief. And in 2,000 years ago, 1,992 to be exact years ago, all of a sudden it's demonic, simply because somebody said it's demonic. And they said it because they didn't understand it. They said it because anything that powerful, anything that righteous, anything that divine cannot be from people who look like us. We are in the place where we are supposed to be right now. We are here. We are in a space that we have longed for quite some time. So let's understand what Jesus is saying here. Let's embrace the moment for what it is. An eye-opening experience that leads us to a different space of understanding, but also leads us to a space where we can see more clearly what the signs of the times mean to us. And I don't believe that we got here haphazardly. I believe that everything is about to fall apart. And it's going to take spiritual ingenuity, spiritual activism to bring balance to the earth and help mankind maintain the hope that they see waning away at this time. So, I believe that we are at the right space, the right place right now. I'm done.
Someone asked earlier about desire. Why was he there? Just looking at that, if I can use Abraham as an example, when Abraham left on his journey, we know that the journey was talking about consciousness. His consciousness was the things he valued, and he moved to a place where the things that he valued was rubble. Why was it rubble? It became rubble because of what he saw and what he recognized. So when you look at,
would you mute your phone, please? Check your phone, make sure it's muted, please.
I don't know what all these names actually mean, but when you look at verse 31, Jesus is traveling. He's walking amongst people. He's walking amongst people who are settled into who they are and what they are and their lifestyle. And it talks about him going into the region of Tyre. Tyre means a rock, stone. What was the other one? Sidon speaks of a fisherman or a hunter. The Decapolis is talking about 10 towns or 10 cities. So can it be that him walking through and showing them, them seeing light, them seeing something that they recognized that they did not get from religion or from the synagogues that they were from, and that is the reason why they followed him, because they recognized there was something there that they did not understand or did not see, because it says, and they brought him one that was deaf and spoke with difficulty. Why would they do that? So the desire was there, not necessarily knowing what they desired, but knowing that this was an opportunity to see something more and recognizing the value of it. So we don't always, like we started this journey searching for truth, not always knowing where it's going to lead, but recognizing that it had some value to it. So I just see the similarities there, because like I said, I don't understand the rock or the hunter and that sort of thing, but he covered a vast territory of land, and as we know, we talked about before, this, it's no coincidence that certain people followed him.
What's Sidon again, Ron?
What did I say? Tyre is A rock,
Yeah,
or
but-
stone.
And Sidon,
Hmm.
Sidon, Sidon, what is it?
That was a hunter or fisherman.
So could you be in a hard place searching for something? Could that be a metaphor speaking about that? Because you understand that we're not talking about people.
Right.
So did you look at Galilee?
I did not. I skipped Galilee and look at the capital. The capital is 10 cities or 10 towns. I did not
Well,
look at the Sea of Galilee.
The reason I asked that about Galilee is because hard place in the struggle to know who you are or to understand or to hear, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're searching for something, and what are you searching for? You're searching for it in Decapolis, right? In the midst, in the laws of Moses.
Yes. You're searching.
You're trying to find it in the laws of Moses, but it's not there.
Galilee is a district or a circle. I thought it meant circle. I wasn't
Okay,
sure.
so you are searching. You are in a hard place, and being in a hard place, you are searching for understanding, but you're searching in the law. But what are you doing? You're traveling in circles. The Sea of Galilee, sea speaks to you, roaring. You hear the roar of what's happening around you, but you are consistently traveling in circles, and you're not getting any understanding. And then it moves into the discussion about the ears being the deaf ears and the trouble speaking. So why would it move to the deaf ears and trouble speaking if it were not talking about a search for something using those cities as metaphors for the search itself? Because as long as humanity, as long as humans have been on this earth, that has been a difficulty. No, I'm sorry, not on this earth. I take that back. As long as we have been involved with, or we have been in the midst of religion, we've had questions about what it means, and we've always been in this tight place when it comes to religion. But we just slough it off as you got to go through troubles, that kind of thing. Or everybody's going to have troubles. We also pass it off to saying that, well, that's just racism. Or then we start asking questions, and now we're in an even harder place, because the more questions we ask, the less interaction people want to have with us. So we're looking for within the confines of the law. However, the moment that our speech changed and our search became a spiritual search, as opposed to trying to find it in this material world within the confines of the law, that is when the opening came that guided us, that gave us the space, rather, to not only be creative, but also to be healers. And this idea of healing is not just talking about some ears. This is not speaking just to that. This healing is talking about being healed from the ignorance of who we are. And ignorance doesn't mean you're dumb, it just means you're unaware.
Yeah.
Being unaware of who we are. And so I see all of that within that framework. Does that make sense? And questions, or somebody want to add something to that? Help me, please. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So I do believe that reading all that, Ron, has given us a clearer sense of what was taking place here. as well as a clearer sense of Jesus' awareness and confidence in Ptah, because that's who he called to for the opening at the Ptah, which is the Aramaic word for Ptah.
What part did you say represents the law?
Decapolis 10.
Okay.
We know it means opening. We know, let's expand if you can, and I know George is still on as well, Ptah, opening. We're talking, again, all of this is spiritual. We're looking into doorways. We're looking into elevations here. We're talking about spiritually seeing everything. Can you expound on Ptah a little bit?
Best I can. Go ahead, George. Go ahead, George. George
Can you
Clark.
hear me?
George
Yeah,
from
can you hear me?
Philadelphia. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, okay, great. And looking at Ptah, Ron, what I want to do is just maybe take a moment to just reflect on what Pastor mentioned yesterday when it comes to the Shabaka stone. When we talk about the
George,
African
hold one second.
theory,
George, hold 1 second.
Yes.
At the end of George's presentation about this, we'll explain again what the Shabaka stone is, okay? Because I know it's new to a lot of people from yesterday. Go ahead, George.
absolutely. And what I'm trying to do is actually take my time to look at it when we talk about the beginning, Ron. When we talk about Genesis, the African theory on the origin of the continual education of the cosmic universe started again some 1,000 years before the Bible manifested in terms of what we know of it today. But to go back and to look at the Shabaka stone, it reflects the epic or the earliest writings of spiritual instructions and morality, on morality. And so when we talk about Ptah, it talks about before the Shabaka stone, the original Shabaka stone was taken from Ptah. When we talk about Hecaptah, it talks about the civilization in terms of the upper and lower kingdom, putting into writing the civilization in terms of what was recorded. And so when we talk about it again, I just want to look at it from the foundation where all of it originated from the eternal waters.
Well, George, let me ask you, are you saying that the foundation is the first song that was, the writings rather, that was given by Ptah for the express purpose of guiding humanity, and that stone, the stone with the guidance written on it, was actually lost or wearing out in terms of the letters being washed away from it. And this particular time, so the foundation is when the Pharaoh decided that he was going to copy the writings of the stone, and the Pharaoh Shabaka said he could copy the writings of the stone, and that's why it's called Shabaka stone.
Yes, Pastor. And
okay.
Again, I appreciate
that's the foundation of it all. And when you say lower kingdom, up in lower kingdom, right? You're talking about the Egyptian kingdom, right? What we call Egypt anyway.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And just to slow down in my mind, because my mind is racing. but I want to try to look at it as we see the scriptures in terms of the creation story, but looking at it from the spiritual aspect in terms of just the Cushite and the Kemetic kingdoms. And Pastor, you talked about the Twa people, but I think that this roadmap in terms of the Shabaka stone, this earliest writings was again from the Memphite theology. The Memphite theology was some 2,000 years before the Common Era that this particular basalt stone, you know, again, was used for they say the grain. When I say grain, like they was using it to wash things. And what happened was, in terms of the four parts of the Shabaka stone, and let me just, you know, again try to refer to it from the foundation, and I appreciate everyone's you know, patience. But it talks about its four parts of this recording in terms of Shabaka stone. So we had the history and the geography, you know, with regards to its initial foundation, where during a French expedition, basically the French, you know, was conquered, you know, by, I want to say the French.
Let
Anyway,
me back you up a little bit, George. Let me back you up a little bit. When you talk about the stone, it is no different than what we have been taught is the stone upon which the commandments was written. Because then those things that they wanted to pass on for generations were chiseled into stone. Am I correct?
Yes.
And when you say
And
patah,
so-
it's no different than us saying God chiseled it, right?
Yes. And again, I'll say the stones that the builder rejected, but what I think is important for me in terms of me trying to understand is that it was something that was written as a primary source. So, you know, when we say Paseb, which is just an African term to say coming to a reckoning using a corrective method. So if the primary source is this Memphite was in the Memphite theology, and then King Shabaka, who found, you know, this stone in terms of his father Patah, you know, want to make sure that it could be rewritten, you know, with the purpose of that roadmap giving us what we come to know today when we talk about the African teachings of Mayat, or the 7 principles and the 42 affirmations. But all of this is like part of that initial primary source. And so when we look at what they call the first Trinity, okay, we're talking about the eternal waters of Nun, which is the first philosophy of the Shabaka stone. Okay,
George.
the primate of essence. Okay, I'm sorry, good question.
Yeah, I got a question. Who was the original stone given to? You said he found the stone, so it wasn't treated as a sacred symbol of any kind. It will, or it had been discarded for what reason?
Okay, and what happened, Ron? Again, I was trying to go back to look at it. Basically, the Shabaka stone in the late 1700s, the French expeditionary forces occupied Kemet, right? And so what happened was the French, right, had this stone, and what happened was, again, when they were taken over by the British,
Gotcha. Okay.
this stone was something that nobody really knew what it really meant. And so they was just using it as a means of just, like I say, washing clothes, or just using the stone
Gotcha.
to,
Okay.
you know, but at the same time, when King Shabaka, when they realized what it was, this is where now, even to date, this particular Shabaka stone is in the British Museum, you know, and is recorded as 498, but it was basically like a 3.4 feet by 4.8 feet slab. And it contained, you know, pretty much 2 horizontal lines, the carved at the top, and then it basically had the 62 vertical lines, you know, which the middle of the Shabaka stone was kind of like, you know, chiseled away a little bit, but it was enough where they knew the importance of it. So what does it all mean? So the Shabaka stone has 4 parts of it. We talked about the primate of essences, which deals with the first Trinity. And that's what I wanted to kind of, you know, just talk about, you know, today, you know, in terms of, again, its purpose. And this is where everything started, right? If we say in the beginning, this was the beginning, you know, the eternal waters. Now, what was the eternal waters? The eternal waters was not like water that we think of today, but this was the matter, right? And when we talk about matter, it's like everything came out of the waters of none. It would be like, you know, Elohim is everything, and everything is Elohim. Everything came out of the eternal waters of none, and so all of it was in there. And now what manifested, you know, in terms of the primate of essences? Then this one you have Ptah. Ptah is energy. It's the conversion of it coming out of the waters, but it was basically the none, which was that energy at rest. Okay, that energy that was just there, and that was there before the beginning. So when we talk about what existed before the beginning, it was the eternal waters, the plasma, all that was part of that spirit and energy in terms of what it is. And so out of the waters of none, Ptah came out of the waters, which is that prime audio hill in terms of energy at rest connecting with energy in motion. And so now we have Ptah, we have the hill, you know, and again, all of it was in the eternal waters, but now we can see the Trinity manifesting, where out of Ptah, we have what they call a tune. And this is what, again, past summer was a tune, was the creative what? The creative utterance of now it coming into form. And so from the primate of essences, that's where we have the Nun, Ptah, and tune. But I think what's important, again, that in 710, before the Common Era, this is where now Shabaka, well, King Shabaka rewrote it. You know what I mean? In terms of it now being part of the roadmap for the Kushite and Kemetic teachings or continued development. And so in terms of how it all originated, I'm just trying to look at it again when we talk about in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. And so when we talk about, again, the cosmic matter, you know, we could begin to see the manifestations, how this came into existence. So, again, I was speaking in reference to the primate of essences. Now, the second philosophy is the primate of, you know, the primate of pre-existing order and the essences. And this is where, again, you know, we begin to see the netters manifesting, you know, in a way that we can appreciate how it was spoken into an existence by a tune. So, how can I say it in a way where hopefully, again, and I know Pastor, you know, again, can bring me back, but I'm just trying to look at the connection when we talk about the Shabbat stone in terms of the 4 parts of the stone. And again, man, there's so much, you know, again, that's in there, but I think the principle or the foundation is what's important in terms of how we look at it in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, but now we can see the same creation story, in the Shabbat Stone.
Yeah,
Beginning with,
I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I thought you had a place to pause.
Yeah, no. I want to pause now because I don't want to go too fast, but I think that to understand when we say matter, what is
Yeah.
matter? The matter is what was there before the beginning. And so that's when we have the cosmic universe. We have, universal matter. We have the earthly matter, and then we have the organic matter. But all of this manifested from the teachings of Hecate when it comes to our understanding of education from a spiritual perspective versus the education of intellect. Go
I
ahead,
think,
Bob, I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. I think what I was trying to grasp is Jesus made a reference here for a reason, and I still don't see the reason. And what I'm saying is he could have said, he could have called on the Father, he could have said anything, but he goes back and say Patah. What is that link? I'm trying to see that link between him being truth and understanding and bringing that forward, and linking that, and what is it we're to see from it. So that's what I'm trying to do is see that energy that he's trying to show us, to give us, because I think this is crucial, and to look at it from that perspective, and probably pick your brain some more, George, to understand this, because I have the book you sent me, but I can read it, but I don't understand everything that I read in it, and to see the link. But I'm trying to see the link, why at that particular time, of all the people that he healed and all the stuff that he did, why was it at this particular time that he uses this reference? And again, if I could just throw this in here, also in Matthew chapter 7, verses 13, where he talks about gate, that's also from that same root word, okay?
I see the connection, I think, anyway. What is the connection between Jesus and what he said and what he did in us? What's the connection? What's the connection? We are 2,000 plus years from Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the connection? What connection do we have? Why do we make that connection with Jesus? Because it's been written, right?
Yeah.
So could it not be that the connection is that Jesus was familiar with the stories that was the traditional stories that were passed on through generations? Jesus was familiar with the writings. And the reason I say that is because there are quite a few things that we find in the Old and New Testament that you will also find in Egypt. So could it possibly be that the connection to the understanding of Patah that brought him to the place of using that term is the same connection that we have to him through the scriptures? Could it possibly be that this is not the only time that a reference was made, but these are only books that we have left because the rest of them were taken away, remember? How do we know that there's not even clearer understanding of Patah by Jesus in the other books? Because again, everything in the book is an allegory. What the hardest thing in the world to get people to understand is the book being an allegory because it has been drilled into us that these stories are about real people who walk the earth as opposed to being a message to us. The healing is about somebody putting their fingers in your ears and healing you. Now, we have books to read. But then from the time of the invasion, when the Kushites began to move into the interior of Africa, what did they do? They told the stories about what happened during the lifetime in the Kushite kingdom. The books were burned, but some survived, and the stories remained, and that is the reason you can look at the Mbuti people who are Twa Mbuti and see the same method, for lack of a better term, of worship that took place millions of years ago. That did not change when Hakupata, when the heel that show reverence for Ptah was constructed. The whole landmass was constructed as reverence to Ptah, because of Ptah having made the opening for everything that's created to become what it is. So how come how is it that we have this connection with what we call the story in Genesis, and them not, who wrote Genesis, not have a connection with the story of Ptah in Egypt? Because both of the stories are the same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And there are, well, Jesus disappears from the scriptures when he's between the time he's 12 years old and the time he's 30 or so. So there are lots of legends of him living and studying in Egypt as well as India. So you're right, he would have understood all these teachings from that are grounded in this belief in Ptah. So if he lived there and he was part of the society, he studied there, he furthered his studies there, he would have understood all those teachings, all those scriptures.
From 12 years old to the time, I guess, 30 maybe, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus disappears. And Josephus says that Josephus is the historian from that period of time. Josephus said that he was taken with that to the Essenes, and the Essenes are known to have complete understandings of what was taught in Egypt. It's the Egyptian mysticism, the Egyptian beliefs in creation and the laws of the universe. The Essenes knew it extremely well. And Josephus says that that's what Jesus was during that period that he's missing from Scripture. Now, if that is true, and I do believe it is, then the connection that Jesus has with Ptah is the same connection that we have with Jesus, because we are studying the writings from that period of time, just as he studied the writings from the period of time of the Kushite kingdom up to the period when he came into to the earth and disappeared at 12 to be with their saints. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he could read now. Most people could not read. most people couldn't read during that period of time. Guess what? Since we're on that, people could read until the invasion. Keep in mind that Jesus' days were in the same days that the Semites controlled the landmass that's called Palestine, because the Romans and the Greeks, the Romans in particular, had invaded that part of the world. Prior to the invasion, everyone was taught to read. After the invasion, that was shut down. Does that make sense? If people couldn't read, why did they have so many books in Egypt? Don't get quiet on me. If you got questions, raise them. I know you don't see it, Ron, because I see your face. Your expression is there.
I'm listening. I'm getting it.
And Pastor, if I may, I mean, just speaking about, in terms of the ancient systems, but, it included not just the writing, but it included the spiritual beliefs, their moral stories. And it goes on to say, not just in terms of that, but they knew about astronomy, geography, medicine, mathematics, ethics, you know what I mean? Grammar, logic, rhetoric, art, music. So again, it's there in terms, as you say, in terms of Jesus being able to come into that awareness in terms of what was predated as he was 12 years old. Where did he get it from?
Right. And also, let's face it, our processing is messed up, because we process just like Socrates. We process the same way that Plato processed. That has to change. The people who, the allegories that we are talking about did not process like that. The people who told these stories, who wrote these allegories, they didn't process like that. And they wrote them in code. If you study the origins of it, the writers were in code for a purpose. The reason they were written in code is because you had to be an initiate in order to understand them. And that initiation goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when the Creator says, unless they enter and live forever, we must place a flaming sword at the entrance. That flaming sword at the entrance was a metaphor saying that they are not, men are not going to process the right way. So that's going to have to be an initiation. What is the initiation? The initiation is for us to disrobe ourselves from all of our ambitions and everything that we thought was true, and then began from the beginning and search for the truth. And in doing so, we have read these verses in Matthew and Mark, rather, I don't know how many times, and did not make that connection with Ptah. So I do believe that it is essential that we get this right in terms of the connection between Jesus and Ptah. And I do not. I don't have a problem seeing it, because I can see the chain of evidence. The chain of evidence leads from tonight back to when these scriptures were written. And it leads from these scriptures back to when the Cushite kingdom, the spiritual priests in the Cushite kingdom, or Kemet, when they were writing what they were shown from the Spirit. And I can see that connection. There is a clear line that runs through all of it. The only break in that line comes with Christianity. That's the first break in that line, Christianity. And then Islam. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. one of the reasons I asked the question about if you could recap all of this is because for me, it was very profound in the sense that I could see that just the fact that Jesus would mention this means he, as you said before, he's going back to beginning. It's way beyond Christianity. It's way beyond Judaism. It's all the way back to the beginning. So for me, that has lots of ramifications. I haven't quite processed them all, but it does have lots of ramifications in terms of if we had not gone back to look at those principles of Ma'at and all of that, we would not have noticed this. It would have just gone by like it's always gone by before. So this is just the time for us to see it.
I agree.
The time for us to see it is now.
And this is the tip of the iceberg. I can't wait to see how we are guided from this point forward because of the vast amount of understanding that we have, but even more that's out there that we haven't even thought of, never have dreamed of, cannot even imagine. Let me give you an example. Can you wrap your mind around how the Dogon were able to map the universe, and they did not even have a piece of glass, let alone a telescope? Can you wrap your mind around it? Can you think? Can you process that? How did they do that? Can you process that? You mean anyone on this call, can you process that? I can't. I've been trying, but I can't. Do I believe it? Of course I do. But can I process it? No, I can't. Say again? Did somebody say something? So anyway, I can't wrap my mind around that in terms of being able to explain to you how it happened, but it did happen. Can we wrap our minds around how the pyramids were constructed when there are no machines on earth to this day that can lift the stones that's in the pyramids? There are so many mysteries that we are privy to, but we have to be shown what they are before we can understand them. Ptah being written right in our face is a mystery that was hidden right in our faces until we went through the understandings of beginning, talked about, as Archie said, Ma'at, then all of this was revealed. Why? Because we were open to understanding what happened spiritually in the place of reverence that's called Egypt today, what happened there. We were open to that. And our being open to that, if we open our eye to see a Ptah in this particular scripture. I do not expect us to get it all at once. Neither do I expect us to be able to wrap our minds around all the stuff that we have been shown in the last couple of days. I don't expect that. But if it happens, please share it with us. Share it with me. We don't want to share it with anyone else. I want to know. And I'll be the first to tell you. Even though I can see those connections, I only understand how all of it was kept alive, and all of it flows like the rivers of water. I don't understand it. Just like I don't understand how the Dogon mapped the universe. I don't. And more important than that, how is it that the pyramids, along with indigenous people, places of worship on the same meridian around the world? How did they know that was on the same meridian? Does that make sense? I don't know what the meridian is. I don't know how they did that. I don't even know how they would do it today. But it was done without instruments. So if there are questions, ask them, because we will not get there without questions.
Hey, Pastor, this is Charles. I'm a lot what y'all saying. I don't understand it yet, but when you were talking about open, when he put his hands in the air and told him to be open, only thing I can think of then is when you were talking about that, it be open mean he had to go to the beginning to open himself up to what he was saying.
To what he wanted to hear, yes, to open himself up to the universe, yes. Let me offer another example, if I may.
Go ahead.
How many of you have been told by your grandparents or your parents about people in the family that were dead 50 years before you were born? Any of you, please, this is not rhetorical. Have your family done that?
Yes.
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 So what is the connection to that? Because when they told you that, they told you stories about the event, didn't they not? So what is the connection? How are you connected to that? That's where the ancestral beliefs comes in. The energy comes in. Why did they tell those stories? So that we will have some sense of where we came from, that we will have some sense of who we are in terms of that family structure. And if you take that and expand it exponentially, you will go all the way back to beginning. Does that make sense? I mean, because the one at 50 years go back 50 years, the other 50 years, that goes all the way back, does it not? I'm done. I can't, I have nothing else to give in that regard. I've said all I see. I wish and I pray for more. And tonight after I get off, I'll do what I do. I'll enter a deep state of meditation and consult with the ancestors and go from there. I'm done, Ron.
Okay.
Unless there are questions, of course. We don't really need my hanging.
Questions or comments, anyone? Okay. Well, maybe this is a good place to, again, take a pause, just kind of absorb what we've heard, meditate, and we'll pick up again next week, next Saturday. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
guys have a good night.
Okay. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
There's a 9:30 conference tonight, as a reminder.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.